Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the Just One More Level podcast Season 2 premiere here, where we have played a little bit of Castlevania on the original Nintendo.
Yep.
We started Season 1 with a screwed-up intro. We're starting Season 2 with a screwed-up intro.
Yeah, I'm your co-host, John.
And I'm Christian, by the way.
That's what I was waiting for. And welcome to Season 2, everybody.
Season 2, if you don't know who we are, then what are you even doing with your life? Come on. All 16 of you or whatever that watch us should obviously know who we are by now.
Yeah, you guys know who we are. That's fine.
Yeah, come on. So yeah, Castlevania. It's a video game.
Yes,
and we played it. And just real quick, just want to do a couple quick things before we get into it. Hopefully by the time this episode's up, we will have a website linked underneath in the video description, or if you're watching on your podcast platform of choice, in the description for the podcast, there should be our website.
Yes.
Would greatly appreciate it if you guys check that out. Maybe vote on some games, give us some suggestions, things like that on there.
Yeah.
As well as check out, we should have a Facebook profile. If you wanna follow us on there, Twitter, of course, which we already have. But you know, if you just want to follow us on there, we would love to get a little bit more interactivity going on. And the other kind of thing that we want to do is have this year kind of do a little bit more of the Castlevania games. So yeah, just look forward to a bit more of that.
Absolutely.
But am I missing anything? Is there anything you want to shout out for this year?
We're also going to try to put maybe a little bit more care and attention into the videos. Something that Christian and I have talked about. I really enjoyed working on the little animations for the Christmas special. So we talked about maybe adding a few more elements like that into the videos. It all depends, of course, on time and scheduling and different things.
So
like
don't
that,
expect it on every video is what we're trying to say. But some videos there will probably be little spins and things like that.
Yeah.
And actually, it's something I forgot to mention to John, but something else I've been thinking of is I would love to have a little bit of fun with some hidden things in the videos and the descriptions and things like that. Yeah. Maybe just so keep your eye out for anything weird in the description or in the videos themselves.
Right.
There may be some hidden stuff going forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we want to have some fun with it this year.
Right.
We kind of got our format down. Now we just want to play around a little bit.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. See what's going on.
Exactly.
So, getting into the game, Castlevania. Yeah. So, Castlevania is something that I love. I haven't.
John talks about it all the time.
I do.
If you haven't watched season 1.
Yeah, in season 1, every game I thought was like Castlevania in some way. Which was my own little hidden Easter egg, because also in season 1 I would talk about how big a fan I am of the YouTuber The Angry Video Game Nerd, and the Angry Video Game Nerd's first review ever, all the way back in 2004, which came out on MySpace.com, was of Castlevania 2: Simon's Quest. And he hated that game. And then he referenced it a lot in other games that he would play, because he started out as the angry Nintendo nerd. So he would only play NES games and then occasionally SNES games before he branched out into playing games of all different genres and on different systems and things. So he would reference Castlevania 2 specifically a lot, or Castlevania 1 and 3, depending on the games. And then eventually he did a 3-part megasode on the Castlevania franchise in general, in which he played all the NES games, the Super Nintendo game, some Sega Genesis and PS1 games, and handheld ports, and a whole bunch of different things like that. So that was always one of my favorite episodes he did. It was a Halloween special, so of course I kind of carried it over into my own content. And because of him is the why I checked out the first Castlevania game in general for the first time, because it looked like a ton of fun and it looked like something that was really action-packed and awesome. So I always wanted to check it out, and since then I've been doing that bit where I like to compare things to Castlevania, which is a pretty unique experience, honestly. It's not...
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Easter egg aside, how did you actually feel about the game playing it now, though?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you've played it a bit before. It's not like this is your first time playing, but yeah.
So Castlevania is tough as nails.
Yes, and no.
Yes and no.
Yeah. So, like, level design-wise, it's enemy placement that
Yes.
makes this game tough as nails.
Yes.
The actual enemies themselves, besides maybe a couple of bosses, and that's only if you don't know how to do the easy kills on the bosses.
Right.
Besides that, the enemies themselves are actually pretty easy. The majority of them are one hit, maybe two hit kill.
Right.
It's because it has that terrible old school design choice of having insta death pits.
Yep.
And enemies spawning out of nowhere to knock you into those pits.
Yes.
That's the number one thing, in my opinion. That and the amount of enemy spam coming out of nowhere.
Yes.
Those are the two things that kill it for me.
Yes.
Everything else about the game is fantastic,
Yes.
in my opinion.
Yes. The music, absolute bangers all the way across the board.
Especially for the Nintendo.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Every track is amazing. I'm not going to lie. I've listened to the OST of Castlevania just on repeat for fun. Like I genuinely think that it's just good music. Like they just did that good of a job of making every track catchy and exciting. Every track feels exciting for a game. So they did a fantastic job with the music. The artwork looks really good and really detailed for the NES.
Yeah, what do you want to say? The setting they were going for, the kind of gothic,
Right.
Medieval-ish kind of setting on the NES.
Right.
And it's so detailed. Like, they only had, what was it on the NES? 4 colors that they could use at a time or something like that?
Yeah.
Maybe
50,
8, but
50 something total.
and
total.
you were limited how many you could use on any
given screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
it
8.
is so detailed.
Yeah.
Even though they had such limited hardware.
Exactly.
It really is insane.
Yeah.
It's the only thing I think that looks better on the Nintendo, from at least my games that I've ever played, are Nintendo first-party games.
Right.
Like
Mario.
Super Mario Brothers 3 looked fantastic,
Oh,
and that's
yeah.
the only thing that comes close, in my opinion,
Right.
to the look of Castlevania.
Yeah, exactly.
But that being said, control-wise,
Yeah.
Castlevania didn't quite reach that Super Mario Brothers 3
No.
level, or Super Mario Brothers 1.
Yeah, and the biggest handicap for the control is not being able to control your jump after you jump.
Exactly.
You have
That's
to move
the number one
first
complaint I
and
have
then
as well.
jump. That is a killer, and especially in a game that has such tight platforming. It's necessary to have really precise jumps to get right on the edge of platforms, and a really common enemy type starting in level 2 are Medusa heads that float along the screen in a zigzag pattern, and they make the platforming
Surprisingly hard to dodge.
surprisingly hard to dodge, and they make the platforming even easier. They're even more difficult to hit if you're trying to knock them off the screen, and it just makes everything so much more difficult. I remember, and I'm going to reference it again, the Angry Video Game Nerd episode on Castlevania. He actually drew in Photoshop the enemy path for like the Medusa heads and for the different enemies. He was just like, you only take up this much of the screen, but you have these people coming from this way and you have these people coming from this way, so this leaves you exactly this much room to navigate through this part of the level. And it was just covered. The screen was just covered.
And that really is the thing. Like,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't coming at you from both sides.
Yeah.
Because one thing I learned, so I've actually beaten this game before. It's been roughly a year or two since I have, but I have beaten this game before.
Major props.
So this is my second time playing. And I found that it was much easier this time than the first time.
Yeah.
And getting used to enemy patterns, like I remember, I forget which stage it was exactly, roughly stage 10, right around there. I thought it was impossible my first time playing. It took me, it must have been like an hour and a half to get through that one stage.
Right.
This time, it took me maybe 10 tries on that stage, maybe a little less, until I was able to figure out a way to get through it almost entirely without getting hit. I still got hit every once in a while, but most of my times through the stage, I didn't get hit at all. So like once you get a feel for the game, it's actually, you can get really good at it. It's consistent at least for the most part.
Right, which is why I'm okay with the difficulty. I mean, there's a saying in the NES collectors community, Castlevania hard.
Yeah. Which, I mean,
if a game is Castlevania hard,
there.
it has that reputation. But like you said, unlike Ghosts and Goblins, which is a game we played for the first season, it doesn't feel like it's unfair hard. it feels like you have to get better at the game, and then you'll be able to pass that section, which drives you to keep trying over and over again, even through all of the deaths and continues and game overs. Which,
if they had did one thing, if they had did the Mega Man thing where instead of dying when you fall off screen, you're taken back down to a lower level.
yes,
I would not have had any problems with the majority of the levels.
right,
Because the enemies you can memorize. You can memorize the enemies, you
Right.
can learn to deal with them. But dying because something spawns off screen and then barely touches you and it knocks you into an insta-death pit,
and that's the thing.
takes one of your limited lives, that's the part that kills it
That's
for
the
me.
only other part of the control that I have the most frustration with, is getting knocked back no matter what hits you. You get
you
get
get
hit,
knocked back hard. It's not just
Yeah.
like half a tile or anything like that. It's like a tile and a half
Yeah,
that it knocks you back.
it's a
So if
huge
you're
knockback.
yeah, and a lot of the platforms that they let you stand on are only about 2 tiles wide anyways.
Yeah.
So unless you're on the very edge, unless you're just barely tiptoeing that edge and you get hit, you're gonna die.
I've noticed
You're just going to be
there's-
knocked off, and there's nothing you can do about it, because once you're in the air, you have no control at all.
Right.
You are stuck on the path that they put you on.
Yeah, and I've noticed too that it's like every once in a while when you get knocked back, if you're in the middle of another animation, like a whip animation or a jump animation, all it does is cancel the animation and leave you
Yes,
with
that's
the,
where the thing can
like
happen,
the
yeah.
hit invincibility, but it's rare and it's not plannable all the time. You have to be an actual speedrunner and practiced at the game in order to try to plan that out to get hit in a way that'll just cancel your animation instead of knocking you back. And it's like, I would say 99% of the time, if you get hit and knocked back, you're dead. Like
Yeah,
there's
honestly,
almost
yeah.
no exception to the rule where you would get knocked back onto another platform or knocked back further back onto the platform you're on. Like it's almost never the case.
It's rough. It's real rough. Again, though, I don't want to discourage anybody from trying the game, because the
Yeah.
game is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I personally played it this time on the Super Nintendo Mini, which enabled save states. I didn't use the save states except for whenever I was done playing.
Right.
I saved my state just so I could continue at a later point. But I wouldn't necessarily say I'm playing it the correct way, though. I think it would
Okay.
be more enjoyable for most people if they did use save states. Not
Yes.
like constantly like save state spamming,
Right.
but every stage or 2 stages or whatever like that. I think
Yeah.
it would be a good idea to just go ahead and save state.
Every time you finally make it past that area you've been dying on 10 times.
Right, right, right.
Save your state and then pick up. I didn't use save states at all this time. I do own the cart, or my friend owns the cart. I'm sorry, I borrow the cartridge. But I don't have a capture card, so
Right.
we weren't sure whether or not I was going to be recording footage or Christian was, so I emulated, but I didn't use any save states for me. I just tried to play through it as naturally as I could, because
Right.
I when I play the game, I play on the cartridge, so that's not a possibility. Because
Right.
I
Unless you have like the analog, I think supports save states. I mean, there's
Right.
newer, regardless, whatever. We're getting way off topic here.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, most people I feel like that are going to be playing this game are going to be emulating it in some way.
Right.
Whether it's on one of the collections that have been released, or it's the Super Nintendo, or sorry, the Nintendo Mini, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
So that would be my recommendation, is to
Yes.
use save states, because the game is very hard. The continue system's great in this game. Don't
It
get
is.
me wrong. It starts you back at the beginning of the level, which each level is only, I think, 3 stages long, maybe 4.
Right.
So it never sets you back that far. The downside is that you lose whatever, well, you lose everything. You just start completely back over with the basic whip, no secondary items, etc.
Right.
So that's kind of the bad part, but you can collect that stuff pretty quickly if you're focusing on destroying all of the candles for the drops that they have and killing enemies and things like that.
Right.
Which again is another thing I quite like about this game, is things like the candles, they spawn things in a certain order.
Yes.
And then there are set spawns for things like secondary weapons.
Right.
So if you've played the game once or twice, or watched the speedrun or whatever, you can start to learn what items kill bosses the best, the easiest,
Right.
the fastest. So you can look out, and then you can actually grab those weapons and then just keep a hold of them
Right.
for the entire rest of the map here. The problem is that if you say that item is a let's say it's holy water, and you collect, the only place in the level to collect holy water is in the first stage of that level,
Right.
and then you die 2 stages into that level, you'll start back at that stage that you died on. That's where you'll respawn at.
Right. Until you get a game
And then you have
over.
no way, unless you get a game over. But that leaves you no way to go back and get that holy water
Right.
to defeat the boss with, which can make it extremely hard to kill some of the bosses, because
Yeah.
we haven't touched on it yet, but the bosses in this game, oh boy.
Yeah. Except
If
with the
you-
exception of the first level boss, the rest of the
Which
bosses are so difficult.
can still be tricky,
Yeah.
in my opinion. If you have, so for the first boss, in my opinion, the best item is the axe to kill it with.
Yeah.
So the axe is an item you kind of throw up in the air, and it does like an arc, and it can actually do multiple hits. Because every like few frames or whatever, it'll do damage. So if you arc it right, it can do damage multiple times, each axe can.
Yeah.
Without that axe, I do think even that boss can be quite difficult at times. It's definitely manageable, but still difficult. The game, the regular enemies may not be that hard to deal with, but the bosses,
Yeah.
oh boy.
Yeah, exactly. And the second level boss is Medusa, or at least it's a giant Medusa head.
I was gonna say, I have no idea what the names of any of the bosses are, to be honest with you. But
I'm not sure myself. The first level boss is a giant bat. The second level boss is a giant Medusa head. I've never made it through level 3, so I'm not sure what the boss is there.
I think 3 is 2 Frankensteins, maybe, or something like that.
Okay.
And then 4th is, I don't know, like Frankenstein and a monkey type looking deal.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't know their names at all, so I'm sorry. I'm sure they're classic monsters, all of them.
Yeah.
But I just don't know.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. But the second level boss is something that I've never gotten past, because I always play this game, like I said, on the actual NES with a friend of mine, because he has the game on cartridge. And when we're playing together, I'll hand it off to him, and he'll get past the second boss, and then we'll move on to level 3 and stuff like that. But this is the first time I actually got through it and was able to beat the second level boss by myself. And I see that here on the video, you're about to use the quick kill method of using the holy water.
Yes.
Yep. But
which just completely stun locks Queen Medusa.
Yes.
And destroys her, completely destroys her.
I went
which is beautiful.
Similar approach. Instead of stun locking, I time locked. I kept the stopwatch power up.
Oh, sure.
And just froze time and just hit her with the whip a bunch, which is not just as effective, but similarly effective. So that can work as well. But this isn't a strategy guide. This is just a review.
Yeah. No.
So other than artwork and gameplay and music, which we have touched on, I would love to touch on the atmosphere of the game. I feel like this game is one of the most perfect Halloween games for the NES that I've played, other than Ghosts and Goblins, which is something that we played together. I feel like just the idea of adventuring through Castle Dracula as the vampire killer, which is what this game was called, I believe, on the Famicom. I could be mistaken.
Not actually sure. You may be right.
Or maybe on DOS or something like that. I feel like there was a version of this game that was released that was called Vampire Killer. It may have initially meant to be called that, because the first level music track is called Vampire Killer. And you play as a character, Simon Belmont, who is a vampire killer. He's a monster killer, and he has traveled to Castle Dracula to put an end to Dracula once and for all. And I think that's just a great plot to a game. You know, it's really difficult to kind of like make a good movie about a classic monster that everybody agrees is a good movie, other than the original Universal classic. And I feel like that translates into games as well. It's kind of difficult to make a game out of a classic monster that's not in some kind of traditional horror game style, like the first person Slender Man game that became really popular amongst indie gamers and indie game developers. That on the Christmas special last season we played Santa Claus, which was very much in that style. It's just a horror game that has that indie first person view, and then insert monster here.
Right. Yeah.
So I think they did a really, really good job of taking the idea of having an adventure in Castle Dracula and making the castle a maze that you have to adventure through, and all of these monsters are within the castle that you have to fight. And I think that's just a really, really clever way to put a spin on such a classic story like Dracula.
Right.
So I really, really like that about it, and I love all of the Gothic architecture and design, which we talked about, level design. I think that it's really, really effective, and it was the perfect way to tackle this on a system like the NES.
Yeah, no, they did a great job with it. Atmosphere-wise, like John said, I mean, we touched on it a little bit with like art and whatnot, but it's amazing what they were able to do on the NES as far as making it feel like you really are in a Gothic medieval like setting. And on top of that, kind of like John was saying, it's a really cool concept to be. I mean, yeah, you're the vampire hunter is what you are, but in order to get to Dracula, you have to fight through all of the lesser monsters, right? Kind of classic monsters. So you're fighting, you know, Medusa, you're fighting Frankenstein, you're fighting mummies, etc. And just progressively making your way through Dracula's castle so you can finally get to Dracula himself to take him down.
Right.
And it was a great concept for a game and executed very well. 100% agree.
Yeah. And spawned a classic, spawned a huge franchise. 2 more games on the NES, a few games on the Super Nintendo Genesis era consoles, a few more on the PlayStation and 64, and it's just kind of kept going throughout the years. In modern day, they haven't made a Castlevania, like a new entry to the series, in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they tried the whole animated series thing on Netflix, which
yes. Which
I don't know how I feel about, to be honest.
I have seen all of it. I will tell you, the first season is passable, the second season is good, and the third season left me very confused. I'm not sure what they were going for there. Excuse me. Yeah. That's how that went. It follows the storyline for anyone that's curious but not curious enough to check it out. It follows the storyline of Castlevania 3 on the NES.
Right.
Very loosely. It just has the characters from Castlevania 3. Something unique about Castlevania 3 is there's a character switch function. So there's 3 or 4 different characters you can play as. Trevor Belmont, I can't believe either a descendant or an ancestor of Simon Belmont, the character from the first and second game. And then there's a magician, they call it in the Castlevania universe, instead of a witch, named Sypha, who has elemental magic. Alucard, which is the son of Dracula. Alucard is Dracula spelled backwards. And then some kind of like minion, hunchback kind of guy that can run all over the place and climb walls and stuff.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, we'll touch upon these other games eventually.
Right.
With more detail, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure we'll play through the entire series eventually, so.
Yes, exactly. But in more recent franchise news, Simon and Richter Belmont, I believe, have been added to Smash Brothers.
That sounds right.
Playable characters. I think it's Simon and Richter. Richter is from the SNES/Sega Genesis Castlevania games after Castlevania 4. He was another, I think, descendant of Simon Belmont. So he was a pretty popular character, and a lot of people liked him and wanted him as opposed to Trevor or Alucard. So, which may be coming in the future. You never know.
Right.
But that's a thing, and I believe, I'm really struggling to remember here, but I believe some kind of paid-for mobile game for Castlevania was going to be released or is released recently, very much in the style of Symphony of the Night, all the way down to, I'm pretty sure you play as Alucard. And
I honestly have no clue.
I'm really bad on my Castlevania trivia at the minute.
Right.
I don't want to let anyone down.
I've
here,
only ever
but
played the first game and watched a little bit of the series on Netflix, so that's my knowledge on it.
Right. Yeah. So that's what you got going on here on the footage. Here I'm looking at Christian here. He's made it to the 3rd level bosses, which is pretty cool.
I die this time though, so I mean, yeah, but
yeah, but it's a fantastic experience. I can't recommend highly enough that you go and play it in whatever format you're able to. Collectors, as far as collectors go, this game isn't really that expensive to collect if you already have an NES. Typically, I see it between $10 and $20, so it's not one of those classic NES titles that's really going to break your bank. So you can definitely collect it that way. It's available on the NES Mini. So that's
and I'm
a really
sure
good
there's
way.
like collections and things like that.
There are,
that
yeah.
you can get for other systems.
I
and
believe
whatnot.
one just dropped a year or two ago. I think it was on the
There you
Switch that you can buy that has this included in it. So yeah, collections and multiple different ways to find the game there. But it's fantastic. I would have loved to have grown up with this game.
Right.
But I am glad that I get to play it now. And yes, absolutely, I would play just one more level. I was just...
Same. The game's frustrating at times,
Yeah.
but 100% I would still play just one more level. I'll probably end up beating it again. Like I said, I made a save state at the end of my time playing through it here, and I did that specifically because I would like to play a little bit more.
Yeah.
In fact, I probably would have played a little bit more last night when I was recording the footage for this podcast, but one, it was getting late, and two, I just got too frustrated on stage 12 or 11 or whatever stage it was, and yeah.
yeah, and I plan on doing a stream of it probably. I was just talking about this with Christian. If I haven't already by the time this comes out, I plan on doing one of those streams where I sit down and I don't stop playing the game till I beat it or lose my mind or whatever.
Right.
But I would love to do that, just to commit that time to it, to try to perfect those parts that I get stuck on by playing them over and over and over. I think that would be a lot of fun. So look forward to that in the future, maybe. And yeah, I just I love this game to pieces, and I'm going to continue referencing it as much as possible, especially when it doesn't make sense. So
Right.
all right.
Well, I think that's pretty much it for the season 2 premiere here.
Season 2 premiere, yeah.
As we mentioned kind of in the beginning, we'd greatly appreciate it if you checked us out on Twitter and Facebook, gave us a follow there, maybe interact a little bit as far as what games we should play and things like that.
Yeah.
If you happen to be watching live on Twitch, you can reach out to us on our personal Twitter accounts that we already have set up, or the podcast Twitter account that is already set up. I'm Stream the Steam. The podcast Twitter is Just One More Podcast, or I think it's One More Podcast actually, because of character limits on Twitter.
Yeah.
Jonathan, what's your Twitter?
I am the Dorseman, John Dorsey 1, and on Instagram and on YouTube and Twitch, I'm also the Dorseman. So you guys can come check me out over there. I play games and I stream. I do like Twitch highlights on YouTube and different things like that. So if that's something that you're into, like I said, I plan on streaming Castlevania in the not too distant future. Doing one of those streams where I don't stop playing. So I think that will be tons of fun. And if you want to check that out over there, you can. But other than that, you can find me on the Just One More Level podcast YouTube channel and our hopefully set up by this point website where like we talked about, you can vote on which games you want us to play. You can make suggestions, and we'll have some kind of polling system. We haven't quite figured out the bugs, but some kind of polling system set up with suggestions that have already been made, so you can vote on which ones you'd like to see, and as well as some other things and links and to be disclosed details that will hopefully have a little bit more ironed out by the time this episode airs. So thank you so much for watching. We're really happy to be back in season 2, and we plan on upping the podcast quality, so to speak, in this season, doing a little bit more with it and having some fun with it. So we're really appreciative that you guys have been with us this long and continue to support us. So thank you, because you don't have to, but you did, and we appreciate it.
We most certainly do. But that's it for this time, everybody. We should be back if we don't do... So for the season premiere, I don't know. We may end up doing a couple episodes in one go, just as kind of a hurrah for the new season. I don't know. Again, details to be ironed out, because we're actually filming this before the season 2 premiere date,
Right.
by a fair margin.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, if we don't do that, then we will be back next week with another game.
Yeah.
That I don't know. We'll figure out what that is.
Yeah.
Do y'all really care what it is? Let us know in the comment section. Do you actually care what we play?
Yeah. Do you? Let me know.
Anyways, that's it, guys. We're done. It's
All
been
right.
nice. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.